pretty close to where they were, I think.
And of course, they're still talking.
I've been following it on Facebook.
Hey, I taught kids for years and years. You know, you could get their attention in the classroom, and then I started doing professional development with educators. Oh my goodness, they did not listen. You know, they were not good students, put it this way. So we now know why. So I'm Katie Hoffman. I'm one of the co-founders of the Greater Cincinnati Dems. I'd like to welcome all of you that are here. We have Bob Parks from the Sierra Club, who will be here and speaking to us. The Sierra Club has been doing a tremendous amount of work. I mean, I've known about the Sierra Club for just years and years and years, and they're always involved in many things. Alberta has a few announcements she wants me to make. I'm sure you all have seen that Elizabeth Warren is going to be here on Saturday. She's going to be down at Bogart's, and all I can think of is it's going to be a hot mess. You can go on to elizabethwarren.com and you can register for tickets. I did mine early on, but the doors are open apparently at 10:30. She's going to be there from 11:30 to 1:30. Saturday morning. Yes. This Saturday, this coming Saturday, she will be at Bogart's. But you do have to go online and you do have to request tickets, and they're still getting them out there. I want to introduce you to someone today, and he's walking across the room here, so he's probably ignoring me. This is Jim Maley. I would like for you to raise your hand. Hey, Jim. Jim was my partner going door to door and hitting probably about 5,000 doors last fall. So this is my guy. He's a retired postal worker, and I gave his name to Rob Weidenfeld, and because of that connection, he is now a precinct chair up in Montgomery. So, you know, all these connections we make are really important. So this is Jim. This is my good friend, Jim. So welcome, Jim. Thank you, Rob, for talking and getting them here. So that's great. Are there any other... Let me tell you about some of the speakers that are coming up in the upcoming weeks. Just so that you know, we are scheduled through July 9th. Yeah, the scheduling committee is just doing some really great work. You have the postings for May. We have Karen Morgan with the Human Rights Campaign next week, Cam Hardy with the Better Bus Coalition. Then we have Ryan Allen, the executive director of Love Must Win. He's very involved in the Gay Pride Parade, the LGBTQ community. June 4th, Stephanie McMahon, a UC professor, speaking to us about the history of taxation. That's going to be very interesting. On June 11th, Ethan Nichols, who is a young 17-year-old who is the head of the Ohio Students for Gun Control. He's a real mover and a shaker. Then we have Ryan Wynette from the Freedom Center. On June 25th, Dick Galloway will be doing Move to Amend American Promise. Then on July 2nd, Dick Bozian gave me just a wonderful topic, and I forgot the topic when I wrote it down, but it's typical Dick and typical humorous, but with a very intelligent way of looking at it. So I think we'll enjoy that a lot. And then on July 9th, we have the Council on Aging. So we have a very diverse group of people coming up. And once we hit August, September, then we're going to start getting into the whole primary thing. So we're pushing back candidates until we get into the fall. And then once it happens, you know, we'll be having all kinds of folks coming on in. So if you know folks from townships, all around the area, local government, remember from what Jill Schiller said last week, what we do in the local governments is really, really important. So getting people here, speaking to us, getting to know them from all over the place, Warren County, Claremont County, wherever they are, welcome them here so that we can make those connections and get them supported. So we have people in all the local governments that are really willing to listen to we the people. So are there any other announcements today? Okay, Doc has one right back here.
Want to tell you? Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. August 12th is Dick Bozian's 100th birthday.
Yes.
And I'm collecting, since he's here,
He's up in Chilcott.
I'm collecting memoirs and stories about Dick, and thanks for you know, whatever he's done that's helped you in your life. And I'm putting them all into a big memory book to give to him at his birthday. So if any of you know Dick or have a story to tell about Dick, then you'll write it up. And you can give it to me here, or I can get you my email address, but it's confidential. He doesn't know I'm doing it, so don't talk about it. Yes, Bernie.
Can I do the same one I did at his 90th?
Yes.
Okay. I know, I haven't said that. I said it. Okay, I'll send it to you. Any more announcements?
Yep.
Okay.
Go if you're happy. You make that okay?
Oh, no.
So, I'm going to make this announcement again. This is the Roy Zimmerman concert, which is going to be next Tuesday. Stay away from the speakers. Next Tuesday evening after our meeting here. Gosh, these microphones are doing strange things today.
Very strange.
Very strange. He's an amazing guy. He's doing his national tour, and he's coming from, I think, Peoria through here on his way to South Carolina. So we grabbed him as he was going from Midwest to East. And he's a progressive. About half of the places he performs at are UU churches, so this one's going to be at the First Unitarian Church. It's sponsored by the Free Inquiry Group, on whose board I sit. And I put on every table a little piece of information about who he is and what the concert is. It's $20 or pay whatever you can. That's all I got for you right now.
Thanks, Bill. Any more? May 14th, yeah.
Good afternoon. Many of you were here when we did a presentation on Better Angels. For those of you that were not here, Better Angels is a group that was formed shortly after the 2016 election. It was because of people like Peter Yarrow, Peter, Paul, and Mary, who decided that he was very distressed about the inability of people across the aisle to communicate. And he came up with the idea, and the idea germinated in South Lebanon, Ohio, where Reds and Blues came together in order to form Better Angels. That group has thrived. It's now in all 50 states. The reason I mention it is that May 17th, in just, I guess that's 10 days, in 10 days there is going to be what we're calling Keep It Country Farm Proudly Presents. It's the premiere of, first of all, the documentary, which was done by a gentleman by the name of Jim Brown, who's a 4-time Emmy winner. It's a presentation which is going to be on PBS, but it's actually going to be what they're calling a pig roast. And Peter Yarrow is going to be there. It's going to be in Warren County. I have flyers, not for everybody, but if you are interested, I also have tickets. It's going to cost, if you want one now, it's $15. If I don't have enough tickets, then what I will do is I will arrange to get it to you. It's $20 at the door. I will tell you that Mike DeWine has been invited, Sherrod Brown has been invited, and so is Rob Portman, and many other legislators have been invited to come. We're hoping for national and local TV coverage, but it's going to be a great big gathering with Reds and Blues. So if you would like any more information on it, please let me know after the meeting. I have tickets, and I have flyers for those that are interested. Yes?
The Reds and Blues that are invited, the politicians, are they going to be taking questions? Or are they just gonna yak at us and then leave?
You know what? Part of it's going to be informal. My guess is you can approach, if any politicians are there, my guess is you could approach them. And what I would say to you is this, that the atmosphere is such, no one's more partisan than I am, but I will tell you the atmosphere at a Better Angels gathering is not to confront. The idea is to find common ground. So you can use your judgment on that. But yes, if they are there, you can talk to them. Any other questions? Thank you.
Anything else? All right.
I have already warned Bob, he wants his presentation to be heard, that no questions, folks, unless it is of something of a technical nature that you don't understand what he was saying. You know, we have acronyms and all those kinds of things. And if you have something like that, just take your hand and put it up this way. And then he will explain further if he gets into some technical jargon. But you guys are the most questioning group I've ever heard, and you love to go off topic. So I've warned Bob, so I'm going to turn it over to him now, and it's up to him to control this mess. All yours, Bob.
Thank you, Katie. And good afternoon. I'll give you a little history just so you know where I'm coming from. I learned about reality during the Vietnam War. Some of you probably shared that experience. At the present time, I'm actually a federal employee here in Cincinnati. I work for NIOSH, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health.
You need to be louder.
Part of the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, so I work on occupational diseases and illnesses. I'm also active in the Sierra Club locally, and I'm on the board of Ohio Citizen Action. After school, I went to Detroit for 16 years and worked for the United Auto Workers doing health and safety related work. I got involved out there in the labor movement. I came to Cincinnati for my current job. Got involved in the single payer network, trying to get single payer healthcare. Had a petition going for several years, and that group is still active. I got involved in the March for Justice after the cops killed Timothy Thomas, and the boycott Cincinnati situation, and we helped stop building a new jail that Todd Fortune really wanted, and they couldn't take an over for anything. So in the Sierra Club, at the present time, I'm involved in things like mass transit and also the problem with the sewer system. Everybody heard about the sewer system problem? Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Well, I think this is an example of what we need to be doing and why the Democratic Party has problems right now. It's a really good example of a local issue that we should be involved in and that they should be involved in. So, how does the sewer system work? Well, in most older cities, they put everything into one pipe. The sanitary sewage went into the same pipe that stormwater went into. And obviously, no system can handle a big storm without overflowing. So they designed it to overflow. All around Cincinnati, there are things called CSOs, combined sewer overflows. You can see them all along Mill Creek. They go into our parks, into our streams, into our basements, if we live in Norwood and other areas. It's a huge problem. The system was not designed to separate stormwater from sanitary waste. In newer areas, there are separate storm sewers. They should be everywhere. So a big challenge today is for Cincinnati to sort of retrofit and go back and do that. It's very expensive. It's also illegal. The Clean Water Act says you don't do that. And so EPA has gone after cities all over the country and gotten consent decrees forcing local authorities to fix this problem. Most older big cities have that. Cincinnati has a problem that's going to cost $4 billion to fix. Well, who's going to pay for it? Well, if you've looked at your water bills lately, you can see you're paying for it. So there's several problems there. How do they set the rate structure to deal with that? And how should that cost be allocated? Well, the way it is now, they tie it to your water usage. The more water you use, the more you pay for your sewer rate. That has nothing to do with stormwater. There are some properties that collect very little stormwater, and other properties that collect huge amounts of stormwater, and they're paying the same in terms of dealing with stormwater. Well, that's a problem right there. The rates are tied to water usage instead of to an infrastructure plan that addresses what has to be done. The other problem with the rate structure is that it's very regressive. There's a minimum charge. And if you use less than that amount of water, it doesn't matter, you pay that charge. So at the present time for single family accounts, every month, you pay almost $40. You could use one drip of water and you pay $40 every month. That's a huge hit on a lot of budgets. The other thing wrong with the rate structure is if you use a whole lot of water, you get a break. You get a 10% cut. So all the big institutions, big commercial users, they get a 10% cut. So basically what this is saying, this rate structure says that the people at the low end of water usage are subsidizing everybody else, especially the big guys.
Why do we do it?
So I'll just give you some numbers. So I'm now talking about residential single-family users. Okay, if you use 400 cubic feet of water per quarter, that would be like a very small family or a lot of single people. You're paying $29 per 100 cubic feet of drinking water that you use. If you have a high water usage, you have a swimming pool and lots of kids and so on and so forth, you're paying $7 per 100 cubic feet. Very regressive rate structure. And it's interesting that that rate structure also applies to small businesses. They define the rates partly on how big your water pipe is. And the smallest one is 5/8 of an inch. So there's lots of little stores and whatever, businesses that are on the same rate structure. They're paying a lot below the minimum charge in terms of usage. So they're all subsidizing the big guys too. So politically, I mean, this is a win-win situation. Most people would benefit from a more or fair, if not progressive rate structure. So the 10% that I mentioned has the consequence that if you look across all residential accounts, not just single family, but apartment buildings and all this kind of stuff, the average cost per 100 cubic feet of water used is $9. If you look across all commercial accounts, including the little guys, the average charge per 100 cubic feet is $6. So again, another indication of how regressive and how inappropriate this rate structure is. And just to give you some idea, 25% of all single-family accounts never get above the minimum charge. They never use enough water to get above the minimum charge. 50% only get a little bit above the minimum charge. Go from the 25th to the 50th percentile. 90% of their bills is the minimum charge. So fixing this would have huge impact on lots of people. This is an issue that if we had a political party that was up there fighting for us, they would be up here reading these numbers. Okay. So,
What was the justification for a minimum charge?
okay. If you look at other cities around the country, half of them have a minimum charge of $14 or less versus ours is almost $40. A quarter of them have a minimum charge of $7 or less. Some of them have no minimum charge. You know, we're using the same pipes. All our stuff goes in the same pipes, the big users and the small users. So why do the big guys get a break? So, can I answer your question? Do it again.
What was the justification?
Do you know about the microphone, why don't you use it, because other people can't hear it?
Well,
He asked, what is the justification for a minimum charge? There's no justification. Well, what do they say? Well, I'll give you one example. When this became a big political issue, the county set up a rate affordability task force that was going to address this problem. And some of the people on that task force were the problem. I mean, a lot of them, including even the Port Authority showed up. You know why? Because they issue bonds. And their position was, you can't reduce the minimum charge because it'll threaten the bonds, which makes no sense. I mean, the income of MSD is threatened when people can't pay their bills. Right? If you make it easier, that reduces the threat on their income, on their bondholders, not increasing it. So that was a totally fake argument, but it's out there.
Specious.
There's other arguments like, well, there's pipe maintenance. And different properties have different sized pipes, the sewers, and probably in the long term, different maintenance costs. I don't know what they're about. They're small though. They're not $40 a month, right? They're probably not even $7 a month, average over everybody overall time. So that's the kind of argument that's made. Now, who sets these rates? Well, actually, what they do is they get a consultant to come in. Black & Veatch has been doing this for years, making money setting our rates. And so they run the numbers, they come up with this proposal. Now, obviously, they're given direction from the county. They don't just invent it out of thin air. And that proposal then goes to the county and it gets approved by the commissioners. They might tweak it a little bit, but basically that's where those rate structures come from. And they invent reasons to justify the rate structure that they like, just like, you know, you cook the intelligence to go to war.
When did MSD?
No questions.
I have a question.
No,
Oh, I'm
technical.
sorry. Oh, I apologize.
Questions at the end.
I'm sorry.
Obstreperous.
Gonna be on your case, girlfriend.
Good, yeah, do it.
Okay, so the Sierra Club has been looking at this problem for years. In fact, they were part of the legal team that went after the city at the consent decree. They get involved in lawsuits around the country. And there's people in the local Sierra Club that actually know more about this problem than the people that run MSD. It's incredible. They're very knowledgeable people. In fact, in my opinion, too knowledgeable because sometimes they don't see the big picture. But in any case, we've been involved. We've been talking to the authorities, talking to MSD, talking to commissioners. You know, why aren't you going to fix this? Here's the problem. Here's how to fix it. Nothing's happening. So at this point, we're at the situation where we're about to come out with a demand. This is what the rate structure should look like, or something close to this. And we're going to put it out there, and we're going to hound not only the current authorities, but anyone running for office in Cincinnati, saying, what's your position on this? Will you endorse this? Will you fight for this? This is an issue that will help you get elected. Hello? And so what that would look like, and this is just under discussion at this point, but we would drop the minimum charge from 37 something down to like 8, which is what the water minimum charge is now. It's 7 something. So that's a huge drop. That would make a big difference. And we would also get rid of the 10% discount. Now, just telling them that is enough to fix the system. They'd have to actually work it through the details. All properties are different, like 2-family homes are a little different. A small apartment buildings are a little different. They'd have to propagate this change through the system. It wouldn't be that difficult. It's not rocket science. And they could do it in a way that is revenue neutral. So the system collects the same income to operate and to fix the problems, but it would be a very different rate structure in terms of what people end up paying. So the reason I think this is so important is it really is an example of a local problem to which there's a solution, and who's fighting for us? Why wouldn't the Democratic Party people, I mean, I've never seen or heard any of these officials saying, wow, this is a really horrible rate structure. Let's fix it. I've never seen them involved, in fact, in a lot of local issues that they should be leading on, educating people, not trailing behind. So that's why I think this is so important. I think I'll stop here because there's going to be lots of discussion, I think. So I'm going to call on people, and then I want other people to respond to them besides me. This is not just...
Well, I stand with you on the side. You're getting feedback from that. That might be better.
Okay. Go ahead.
My question.
No, Pam's got the
My
microphone.
I thought he was gonna call on people, he called on me.
No, you have to have the.
Do the microphone.
Sorry.
All right. I applaud the decision of your group Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the decision to create a model of how the revenues could be structured differently. That's a very good idea. I was wondering, is there any current proposal from the city or any organizing body to actually be working on changing the problem, the construction of the water system going into this pipe? Because I didn't hear anything about that. Are there any proposals about concretely changing and addressing the problem of these two sources of water flowing together?
Yes, there's a lot going on. When you drive around, you see road work. You're probably seeing some MSD sewer work going on. And there's been a lot of different projects, like Lick Run is being totally rebuilt, mainly because that used to be a natural drainage system for rainwater, and it was put in a huge pipe. So that's an example of getting stormwater out of the sewer system and back where it should be. It's going to go down to a big lagoon at the bottom of the valley there and then into Mill Creek. There's a lot of work. The Sierra Club has been critical over the years of exactly how they're doing it. Their initial approach was the gray approach, which is build bigger pipes, bigger treatment plants, and not worry about separation. And under criticism, they've moved quite a bit toward green solutions, daylighting streams that have been buried for decades, promoting construction of retention basins that catch rainwater and release it slowly or keep it so it goes into the ground. There's a lot of that happening. So MST is active. They're spending some of this money they're collecting slowly. So we could get into discussion about what they could do better. And like I said, there's people in the Sierra Club that know what they're doing better than they do almost. But a lot is happening.
Okay, when did the county sell the rights to manage the sewer to MSD, a private corporation, and how much does that CEO make?
I don't think MSD is a private corporation. It's run by the county. It's there's this problem.
They're not county employees, because I just interfaced with MSD and asked.
They're in the middle of this complicated problem because part of it's city and part of it's county. That's right. I think the county owns it, but the city actually administers the personnel. That's right. And there's just huge problems, which you would think they could figure out solutions. It's not rocket science, but it's taking them years.
Well, we do own the city water. The city owns the city water, and they've been trying to buy the city water management for years, and we always voted down. Thank you. Please, let's continue to vote that down, because the rates will go crazy if we allow a private corporation to take over.
Privatization, yeah.
Yes. That's all. Thank you.
Sue.
You mentioned the multiple billions that it's going to require to, because of the consent decree, right?
Yes.
We don't have a choice, it has to be done to change the structure. It's a matter of whether it's green or, and now it is becoming more green, and that's all positive. But the money, the billions, is some of that federal money coming in to pay for that? Because it's a federal consent decree, I would expect federal money to follow. Is that happening?
Very little, if at all. So there's very little federal money coming in.
So it's an unfunded mandate, basically.
Pretty much. So Todd Fortuna has been involved in this for years, and one of the things he's done is he went to Washington and got some legislation to change the whole situation a little bit, which I think is actually going to downsize the project. In other words, make it easier, have a less comprehensive fix, which is not good in my opinion, but that's his focus rather than getting the funds. I mean, there's plenty of money in Cincinnati. It's a very rich city at the top. We have the same problem that the world has in terms of the concentration of wealth. That money is there if the political will is to go after.
What confused me is you mentioned, following up on what Sue said, these billions, and then you went into a rate structure changes, which you said would be income neutral, if I heard you correctly. So in other words, the issue of the rate structure really has nothing to do with the overall massive cost of really fixing the problem. I misunderstand.
No, the rate structure has already blossomed to address fixing the consent decree. The problem is who's paying for it.
So in other words, if you change all these rates to a fairer, the total amount of income from it would still long-term fix the problem.
Yes. And I mean, there might be changes year to year. Some of their projects are bigger than others, and there'd be some adjustment like that. But yeah, the current rate structure is designed, and this gets into bonds again, because they have to project income and all that kind of stuff, and expenses. It's been designed to address this problem.
Sure, Mike. Maybe we can give him one of the hand mics.
Well, then I'll have to turn off the other one.
Yeah, I'll turn it on. You have to talk pretty close.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, it is. You have to speak louder.
I'm ready for a question.
Matt's got it right here. No, not yet. This one's not.
So the problem is that every time the MSD comes up, it's directed to who's going to manage the project, and it's a political fight over the city versus the county. I think we ought to get Gerald Checco in here, who just retired from there, and said he could fix it. You could easily fix it, but it's a political issue. When we're talking to county candidates, and particularly, I don't know, we're not going to have any commissioners up for election for a while, but we need to talk about the rate structure and the inequality of the rate structure, and why do the big guys get a discount and have to pay anything, and separate the two problems whenever you ask the question. That it's not the management problem, sure, that's huge, and they need to solve it. But the other thing is the total inequity that the small guy's paying for everybody else.
I agree with that.
So this might be a misunderstanding on my part, but does John Cranley have the power to appoint people to the MSD board?
I think those rules are still under negotiation, so I don't know what the situation is now.
So we have a problem with the rate structure. Who do we contact regarding the rate structure? Who's responsible for setting it and possibly changing it?
The county commissioner.
Okay, that's what I...
Get a proposed rate structure and they look at it for 10 minutes and it's cool.
Okay, so it would be the county...
It's working.
So it would be the county commissioners that we need to contact regarding the rate structure.
And your neighbors.
And our, yes.
Got to be a political issue. So I should point out that even in the absence of a fix, there have been some changes. They haven't raised the rates in 4 years because it became such a hot issue. So that's a victory right there, and it shows that we have some power. So this is fixable.
I have heard about families that were thrown out of their apartments or houses because they couldn't pay their water bill. I mean, landlords, as I understand it. I mean, are you aware of such evictions?
I've heard of stories.
I read somewhere, but I don't remember where I got this information. So, but from what you're saying, it's bound to happen.
Right.
Because if you miss 1 month, that's one thing, you know, but if you miss 3 or 4 months and then you can't catch up, the people, you know, the family, unlimited income, can't catch up with their water bill, they can be thrown out.
Right. So one of the things that the task force did, because it was under a lot of pressure, they came up with a proposal for a customer assistance program for exactly that reason. Okay. And in recent weeks, they've actually had public hearings on their final proposal. It's called the CAP, C-A-P, Customer Assistance Program. It turns out this program is legally limited in a lot of ways. It's going to help very few people, and it's only older people, which of course they need help, but there's some younger people that aren't 65 who are going to need help. This program would become totally irrelevant if they fix the rate structure. It's going to give them like maybe a 20% discount if they're in a really bad situation. And it creates a whole new bureaucracy. You have to prove that you're poor. Every year you got to document it. It's a huge nothing.
Well, the challenge is that water rates just isn't sexy, like potholes. And I have 2 questions. You mentioned that you were involved in the Timothy Thomas, in that whole thing. And I'd also like your take on what's happening in Flint, Michigan.
You may not know.
Well, I lived in Detroit, so it wasn't very far away. And my field is public health and even epidemiology. And some of my colleagues in Michigan government behaved very badly. They knew about things that they should have addressed and dealt with and didn't. So it's a major tragedy. It's all about old lead pipes and changing the characteristics of the drinking water, pH I guess it was, that allowed lead to be mobilized from the pipes into the water. So that's about all I know. People have gone to jail, and they're doing lots of fixes, but they're probably still dependent on water. And that must be true in other cities. I mean, Flint was not a different place. It's just like America. So.
I'm going to respond to that.
I met with the congressman from Michigan, Flint, Michigan, and he said that in order for them to save $25 million, they went ahead with this horrible water problem in water solution in Flint. It's going to cost them 10 times that amount to correct the problems. So you know what, they decided to put a Band-Aid on something, and they caused a huge problem. And it took so long to finally get pressure on that community to make a difference. How long had those children been dealing with that? How long had the poor people of Flint had to deal with this? And so it was in the favor of somebody making a couple of bucks. And this is what it sounds like it's happening all around. It's always about who's going to put the money in their pocket.
Just had a couple things.
You got it.
Okay. Is it working now? Okay. So just a couple things. One is with the rain barrels. I understand they collect the rainwater and keep it from adding to runoff, but I've never. What happens to what happens? Just touch it. What happens to the water afterward?
How do you use the water?
Okay. What
I
happens
got
to
the
the water
question.
afterward?
If you have a rain barrel and it fills up, where does the water go? And so a lot of people that have rain barrels are gardeners. And it's really nice to have a thing out in the middle of your yard that you can walk over and get water out of. So, other than that, you can just let them drain slowly. That would take load off the system.
Okay. My second thing was I have seen more use of, I think it's called bioswales, to help reduce runoff, and I'm wondering how that can be part of discussions with future development, because a lot of this is just we keep paving paradise and putting up parking lots. So how can we make sure how can we make sure that bioswales are more integrated into future development?
Well, a bioswale is just another way of collecting water. I have two in my garden. It's a horizontal ditch, and mine is set up so that when it overflows, it goes out to the street, which does have storm sewers, but it does catch a lot of water. So her question speaks to code, basically. What codes do developers have to follow? And that there are some codes in place now. I don't know them in detail. I'm not an expert. If you go to some malls and look around, you can see a place where water collects. That they intentionally left a big hole, and there's a drain at the top of it. So that would be an example of water management. There could be a lot more of that. There's a lot of public property actually that dumps water into the sewer system. Parks, for example, and it wouldn't be that hard to add some ponds. They're never level. We live in a hilly city. There's lots of opportunities to build little mounds, little dams to catch water, and also to go back to streams. So there's lots of possibilities. And this is something actually politically that would be interesting, would be for small municipalities to make a deal with MSD and say, look, we'll do this if you reduce our rates across our whole town.
Over here, over there.
Hi, I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and Bob, you're probably familiar with some of the stuff that's been going on in Detroit. Besides going from 2 million people down to about 700,000 people that our water system had to serve, they have been cutting the water off for the people who remain, and thousands of people have had their water cut off. And there's been a fight going on with local government not to turn the water off. And I'm sure it's the same kind of thing with large water users not paying as much as individual homes. In fact, I think Chrysler's at one time owed Hamtramck or Highland Park
Unity has the volumes turned up.
hundreds of thousands of dollars in water costs that the city of Detroit had provided.
On the bottom.
So this problem in its water is a universal problem if you don't have it.
And the feedback went away, but when I turned it, then you couldn't hear him. Yeah.
I think it's a big problem trying to bring awareness to the idea that water is not free. You know, I think basically we've all kind of had this mentality forever that water just, it comes out of the sky and we live in a place where it rains all the time. Why do we have to pay so much for water?
That's on the right-hand side of the bag.
You know, these problems are really complicated. The rain barrel thing is a good idea. If you water your lawn with rain from the rain barrel, then you're not, the water that's going through your hose is the metropolitan sewer district. You know, you're not paying for all the extra that goes into cleaning it up so that you can water your yard. You can just water it straight from the rain barrel. And the green element in parking lots, instead of the water running off into the sewer line, you know, the swells, it sinks into the ground. There's a lot of solutions that are very green, but they don't come cheap. And the problem is who's paying, you know, and it does need to be equitable. But in order to have green solutions, we have to change a system that was built on not even thinking ever about this as a problem, because how long ago, it wasn't that long ago, there weren't any sewers in Cincinnati. You know, relatively speaking, that's a fairly modern problem. How long ago, do you know? It surprised me when I heard. It really wasn't, the whole sewer system didn't develop, you know. Who?
The Romans had.
Well, the concept was existing, but, you know, it is an evolutionary concept that we all have to take ownership for.
I think some of the earliest sewers were actually designed for drainage, to recover land that's wet all the time. So just get the water out, and then when they figured out it's going to get rid of your sanitary sewage, they just plumbed it into the same line.
We had a problem in our area where somebody put tarring all over where there had been some gravel, and it just pools all the way down. I called the city, they came out and they said they couldn't do anything about it because she owned that driveway. And that it is, everybody knows it, get more water into their yards and whatever. So is there anything going about that? That you can do whatever, it seems like you can do whatever you want to your house, and it doesn't matter if it infringes on the rest of the people.
This gets back to code regulation again. And I think the existing code that addresses this is really limited to really big properties, for example, like shopping centers. So that's an area where they could improve it. The demand that we're working on not only fixes the regressive part of the water-based charge, but it says half of the money for the consent decree should come from a fee directly related to stormwater dispersal. And so that would be tied to the area of somebody's property. And then there would be discounts if you manage your stormwater so that it gets to a storm drain. You get a big discount. If you do other things like rain gardens or barrels or swales or whatever, that could be a discount. So there's a lot of things they could do that would incentivize small property owners to help solve the problem. The current proposal in this that the city and county are talking about, they've been talking about it for 5 years now, has to do with permeable pavement. So when your neighbor puts tarmac down on the drive, they'd be required to use a permeable material, something that's waterproof. And any small commercial parking lot would have to do
This
that.
water drains like a day
Yeah, I
after it's
turned,
made.
that's why I turned that off.
It keeps coming down, I see it. It's quite a long driveway. A bunch of apartments that look like motels. And then there are houses on the other side.
Thanks again for all your information. It's really great. I just pulled up the MSD site, and it's a private entity that is actually governed by the city and the county, right? The director of MSD, how much does she make?
I don't know.
That's what I want to know. Okay. The other
Too much.
My comment, I want to know how much I got the organizational structure, I pulled it up. I live in Anderson, which is not in the city, and which, of course, does fall under the MSD, because that's the county, and that's how come I interface with MSD, which was not that great of an experience, but because I had plumbing, I had a big plumbing issue. But in Anderson, we do have a lot of hills and a lot of water, and they made ponds, little reflecting ponds in front of the municipal area and because we have a lot of backup. But Anderson's a very wealthy area, and people are not going to put up with backups in their basement. And we do pay taxes for what they added, that beautiful reflecting pond and area that they built around the municipal area. And they're doing more of that, but we do pay for that, which I pay very high property tax, very high, but that's okay, I don't mind. I believe in paying taxes. I believe in paying taxes.
And in Anderson, I live there too, there's lots of streams all over the place. And most of them are not being used to handle stormwater to the extent that they could. So and it would be so nice to have real streams again. They're an asset, recreational asset.
Anybody else?
Harper's had an article about 2 or 3 months ago about Pretty Prairie, Kansas. And they don't have any water now. They use bottled water, or they go to neighboring cities and bring it home. In their case, it was nitrates getting into fertilizers that were being used. It contaminated their water. They only had one big holding tank or something. I mean, I don't know, all the water was, and so they haven't been able to afford to deal with this. It's just water is life, as we're all always saying to each other. Or Sunco, we may not have a clean river. I mean, we allow all kind of horrible things to happen. Well, I hope we know who to reach about the MSD here. I mean, what should, I don't know a whole lot about it. What should individuals do? What contacts?
Well, it's, I think, largely a political problem. I would like to ask you folks, how about going to the Hamilton County Democratic Party and saying, hey, where are you on this? How come we haven't heard anything? How come you're not leading the charge instead of holding it back?
That's right, our commissioners.
And then in terms of more technical details about MSD, one of the folks in our group is Marilyn Wall, who's an authority in great detail. She's way down in the weeds on all this stuff. So just through the Sierra Club, you could contact her.
Okay, yes, I know Marilyn, and I'm a member of the Sierra Club. And I would like to say to everybody, their magazine is the best thing in the world. They're worth joining just for the sake of the wonderful magazine. Really, they're on top of everything. And you can read it online. I have low vision. I get the magazine, but then I look at the contents and then I read it online. think anybody can. I don't think I have to say I remember to read it online.
I would like to mention, we just recently had a Mount Auburn Community Council meeting, and they're going to be putting in a coffee shop, wine bar at the corner right there on Auburn Avenue, the old Flatiron Building. And when we asked around parking, the developer said, we're not allowed to do any more concrete paving in Mount Auburn. So in other words, they're putting a hiatus on any more concrete or any more structures like that in the city of Cincinnati. So I was really pleased to hear that.
That brings up another point, and maybe you did talk about it and I missed it. What about permeable concrete? Does that ban on concrete include permeable concrete?
They've been talking about requiring permeable concrete, so I think, I don't know about Mount Auburn, but that would be the solution.
Yeah, that would be.
Part of it.
Have to point it right at your mouth. Try it now.
How's this?
That's awesome.
Perfect.
Any more questions? Well, I'd like to thank Bob for being here. I think he's brought a lot of understanding, and I encourage you, just like he said, start talking to the Hamilton County Commissioners, start talking to the the Hamilton County Democratic Party. There are things we have to do. I'm going to go back to what Jill Schiller said. We, the people, need to be talking to the people who represent us at the local level. We've got to get people out there who are willing to listen to we, the people. So thank you, Bob, very much, once again, for reminding us we have a job to do. And I go back to that old Goldie Hawn movie. You know, she got shot in the rear end by some guy from the Middle East. And then she came back and realized, if you don't get out and vote, if you don't get out there and raise your voice, it's your fault what happens. So get out there and raise your voices, folks. Have a good day. Thank you.
You know exactly what movie I was talking about.